Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football league with the help of our starting lineup. At host to quarterback the show, we have Nick Giacobbe. Up next, a dual threat in Dynasty and Daily Fantasy, we have Cody Repass. And finally, working the waiver wire, we have Nick Cap. These are your playmakers that will provide you with sleepers, breakouts, and busts to help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to Week 5, our live show of the PrimeTime Fantasy Football Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, in the hopes that we help you prevail throughout the 2021 fantasy football season. I am your host every single week, Nick Giacobbe, and with me is my pal for almost 15, 16 years, Nick Cap. Nick, how are you doing this Sunday morning? The Jets are on.
Yeah, the Jets are off, unfortunately. Yeah, we're not looking too good. Our Sunday could be getting a better start, but apparently we want to jet it up to start the game. So it is what it is. We move.
As much as I love the London games, we are going to have shows during the three of them. It's just how it's going to go. It is at halftime right now, so we'll be talking throughout the show. We have about 30, 40 minutes. For you guys that have tuned into the show before, our other co-host Cody Repass is not here. He had a bit of a family thing going on, so he won't be on today's show. But that's okay. Me and Nick are going to hold it down like we always do whenever it's just us two. So if it's your first time listening, welcome and thank you so much. We do a live show every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time on our Twitter, our Facebook, and our YouTube pages. We do this live show to give you daily fantasy advice, answer all of your questions that you have before Week 5, and to update you on the injuries that come out at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time for those 1 o'clock games. We also do two other shows throughout the week on Tuesdays and Fridays. Those are recorded, so you can find the audio version of that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcast, anywhere where podcast audio is found. If you are on iTunes/Apple, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. If you want to watch us for those podcasts, they are recorded with the video and audio on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. And for social media, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram is PrimeTimeFFPod. And Facebook is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Alrighty, Nick, it's Week 5. We are live. So let's talk with some news here. We do have some news that we need to talk about. Some unfortunate news. So Russell Wilson's injured. Russell Wilson got injured Thursday night. Something wrong with his middle finger. I forget the exact injury. I should know it, but I'm too devastated to even look at the exact medical term. But moral of the story is he did need surgery on it. He wasn't able to hold the ball correctly, so he did not come back into the game. The first report said 6 to 8 weeks after surgery that was, quote-unquote, more complicated, according to Ian Rappaport. I believe they had to do screws and then something else with the fingers. He has a giant cast on now. I'll pull up the ridiculous picture because Russell Wilson looked high for the first time in his life. So somebody was having a good time. And this is only video, I should say. So here's the picture. My ring light is getting away, but this dude looks so high. And then a report came out, I believe it was last night, that his doctors believe there's a chance he could be back in 4 weeks, which sounds very Russell Wilson-like. But Nick, let's start with this. How does Russell Wilson affect fantasy rosters, his injury at least, fantasy rosters, for the rest of the at least 4 to 6, 8 weeks, whatever it is?
I mean, I'm a Tyler Lockett owner. I'm a DK Metcalf owner. I'm not thrilled with the news. I
don't want to cut you off. So we have a bunch of players to talk about. Let's just start with Russell Wilson. If you're a Russell Wilson owner, let's start with that. I should have, gone with that. So if you're a Russell Wilson owner, how does this affect your fantasy team?
I mean, it definitely hurts. You're probably not going to be able to pick up a running quarterback with a rushing upside as Russ or deep arm accuracy like Russ. I mean, Russell Wilson's a top 5 quarterback in this league. I think it's pretty much known at this point across the entire NFL world that that's the case. But the quarterback position is deep. So there's going to be other guys on your waiver wire that you're going to stream based on the matchup for the next 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, Geno Smith, I don't think will be startable unless it's a ideal matchup. I don't know the Seahawks schedule coming up. You probably do better.
Seahawks schedule is the Steelers on Sunday Night Football next week in Pittsburgh. Then they face Jacksonville. I think it's Jacksonville and Seattle, and then or maybe it's New Orleans then Jacksonville. I know those are the other two teams. I just don't remember the order correctly, but I think they're home in both of those games.
So Jacksonville wouldn't be a terrible matchup. Pete Carroll likes to rely on the run game anyway. So you probably won't see too many deep shots, but that Jacksonville secondary is horrendous. So maybe Geno Smith's a streamer by then, but we'll have a week or two to gauge how well he's fitting into the role. He didn't look too bad last week, I didn't think, or when he stepped in on Thursday. So I'm not too concerned with that. But
so the schedule is at Pittsburgh Sunday Night Football for Week 6, Monday Night Football against the Saints. At home in Seattle, Week 7, and then Week 8 against Jacksonville, and then they go into the bye. And the bye could be really, really helpful because if Russ is only out 4 weeks, that's the bye. And he really gets an extra 3 days because he played on Sunday night. So the earliest Russell Wilson could return would be Week 10 at Green Bay, where Russell Wilson is historically terrible. So
at least that Packers defense looks terrible as well. And Jair just has the IR, so
he is historically bad in Green Bay. So that's his best case scenario. If it's a 6-week timeable, then it would be I believe it would be November 29th, Monday Night Football, Week 12 against the football team. There's also Week 11 against the Cardinals at home, the 49ers on Sunday Night Football, Week 13. So that's where we're looking right now. If you're a Russell Wilson owner like me who did not draft the backup quarterback, you're in a tough situation because when I looked at my waiver wire, I saw Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Jared Goff. I think Fields was there. I think Matt Ryan was there, who's having a decent game so far. Just not a lot. So I picked up Trevor Lawrence, but Lawrence is going to be on bye after next week anyway. I'm going to play Lawrence against Seattle for sure because the Seattle defense is – man, they don't do anything right. They do absolutely nothing right, but it's tough. Like, hopefully you picked up Sam Darnold or something off the waiver wire. Hopefully you drafted a quarterback. In my dynasty league, I actually drafted Joe Burrow as my backup because he's young and it was good to have a backup. And I'm very happy about that one. I actually was playing Burrow this week against the Packers. I didn't even start Russell Wilson. And Burrow's been a top 10 fantasy quarterback so far this season. So luckily with my dynasty team, I'm not so worried, but with my other big league, the redraft one that me, Nick, and Cody are all in with Russell Wilson as my quarterback, that's a problem. Let's talk about these receivers, Nick. Which one is going to suffer more without Russell Wilson? DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett?
DK, for sure. DK's the deep route guy. He's the guy, you're trusting with those 15, 20-yard passes. He's the guy you trust over the top. He's not going to see that ball with Geno Smith. But
did you see what he did with Geno Smith on Thursday?
I did, but that was the defense not anticipating that. That offensive line is horrendous, and Russell Wilson is fantastic at buying time, which is why DK always sees so much production. I think Tyler Lockett will be, he'll see his still same benefactor. Those boom games are going to be more limited without Russell Wilson, obviously. I think there are weeks you can say, I can bench Tyler Lockett now. I don't really think with the boom upside with Wilson, you could do that. But I absolutely think DK is going to take the biggest hit. I think the running backs, we'll see if Carson gets back in there. I think Carson will see a big uptake because I think he's going to see 5-10 more touches a game. I think Alex Collins looked really good, so if he gets more playing time, he's going to look good. That's really it. I think maybe look more towards the tight end position as well. That could, if Everett comes back, that'd be a good one.
So we do have our first question of the day, so we're going to pull it up before I give my take on this. If the question wants to pull up, Nick, can you try to pull the question up? My StreamYard is deciding.
Oh, you got it up. You got it up.
Is it up right now? Because mine is it up?
No.
You want to pull it up for me?
Won't let me on my end.
Okay. Let's try that.
Yep. There you go.
All right. So I'm not seeing it on mine. All right. It's from Lou D on YouTube. Would y'all start Trey Lance or Taylor Heineke?
I'm starting Trey Lance. I said I think Lance has a massive week. I know it's a tough matchup against the Cardinals. I think that he really shows out this week and shows that that he's the best rookie quarterback in the class. As a Jets fan, I think Trey Lance is going to have be the best just purely off situation for his rookie year. And of course, he's extremely talented. So I think he has a massive week. I predicted on the show that he's going to outscore Kirk Cousins, and Cousins plays the Lions at, I think it's 1:00, which is prime time for Kirk Cousins because he struggles in any other time slot. But I think Lance has a big week this week.
I'm all in on Trey Lance. I don't think that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play another game as a San Francisco 49er. I think Lance is going to run with that job, and he's going to be the starting quarterback for the next probably 10 years. And as a Seahawks fan, I hate to say that. I don't think you could trust Taylor Heineke. I think he's a bottom 15, 20 fantasy quarterback unless you're in a 12-man league. Lou, I would love to know who your other quarterback is. Why did you end up with these guys as your quarterback? I would love to know, are you in a 14-person league, a 12-man league, or do you have Russell Wilson and maybe you're bouncing off of this? Maybe that's what it is. But I would love to know, if you're listening, who your other quarterback was or who your drafted quarterback was, because maybe did you draft Big Ben? Maybe because
maybe Tannehill.
Maybe Tannehill. I mean, yeah, Lou, if you're listening, let us know in the comments who your other quarterback was or who your drafted quarterback was. I wouldn't start Heineke, though. I don't think there's the upside there. I think Terry's his only target, and Terry's a monster. He's a top 5 fantasy wide receiver at this point. But nobody else, and Gibson you could start, but nobody else on that Washington team is probably startable. So thanks for the question, Lou, and let us know who your other quarterback is, because I'm curious about that one. As for the Seahawks receivers, I think Lockett takes the bigger hit. I think Tyler Lockett needs Russell Wilson more than Russell Wilson needs Tyler Lockett. I think DK Metcalf, you put him on any of the 30 teams, that guy's a stud. Does he drop some balls? Sure, but he's a physical freak. Anybody could throw him the ball, and they're going to get him his targets. I believe in the second half. I don't remember the exact stat line. I think he had 2 or 3 receptions with Geno, and one of them was a touchdown. He had 5 receptions on 5 targets, 98 yards. Lockett to get more targets. But I just think DK is more of a safety blanket, and Lockett knows when to run around when Russell Wilson is doing his old magician act. And that's a lot of, he does kind of what Doug Baldwin used to do. I think DK is just a pure receiver. DK can run it, catch it, run deep routes, short routes. I think DK could do it all. And I think Lockett needs Russ to kind of do his magician act. And that's where their chemistry comes in. And Geno doesn't have that chemistry with Lockett. So I think Lockett's at 3 straight games under 10 points or under 12 points. Am I right on that? Something like that. He hasn't been good since those 2 boom weeks, because guess what I said before the season? Tyler Lockett
10 this week, but
Tyler Lockett is boom or bust. Tyler Lockett is not set it and quit it. DK Metcalf is. So
just a quick little update. Jets nearly housed it on the kick return at the half. Beautiful.
All right, let's get Corey Davis in the end zone here, because I have him starting.
I'm with you on that one.
And as for the running backs, Pete Carroll has secretly wanted for years to run the ball and play defense. He does not realize how important Russell Wilson is to his football team. All right, Pete, let's see what you do here. Let's see what you do if you need number 3 or not. Because if you go 0 for 3 in these matchups, or 1 and 2, and your run game and defense doesn't work, Russell Wilson ain't the problem, old man.
There's also another thing. I mean, you really got to think. Sean Payton really proved when Drew Brees was out last year or 2 years ago, that with Teddy B and Taysom Hill, he was able to plug them in and solve problems with quarterbacks that you didn't think were, real starters.
He rolled into Seattle on one with Teddy Bridgewater on the first start.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is going to be a true test of Pete Carroll as a coach. Yeah. Is it really all Wilson, or is it Pete Carroll show?
Yeah, and Teddy B's obviously a much better quarterback than Geno Smith, but still,
of course.
The point being, how can you change your game plan to benefit the players around you? And we'll see exactly what he could do there. Another injury that affects me, George Kittle is now on the IR for at least 3 weeks with a calf injury. He's been dealing with it the whole season, and the Niners basically described it as they believe that if they didn't put him on IR, that he was going to keep suffering throughout the entire season. So it was just the best of that. The belief that he'll return against Arizona on November 7th against the Cardinals. So, Nick, if you're a George Kittle owner, how does this affect your fantasy team?
I mean, obviously, Kittle, you drafted, that high for a reason. It's so that you could have one of the top 3 tight ends in football. I mean, before the year, I think everyone projected Kittle, Waller, and Kelsey, those 3, and then a huge gap to whoever number 4 was going to be. So obviously it's a big hit to your team with the draft capital you had to use on him. But I think that this year at the tight end is a little different than last year. You're seeing a couple guys with some good workload. You're seeing some guys with those higher boom weeks. I mean, it's really up to you to pick on a weekly basis. And of course, we'll be here to help you out who we think that guy is going to be. And it's 3 weeks, so it's not the biggest hit. I mean, if you started off 1 and 3, you're taking a big hit because you're probably not going to win that tight end position. You just need someone that can hang with your opponent. So it's going to be tough, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible, especially because Kittle hasn't put up the biggest weeks through the first couple. So, I mean, you haven't been getting much production from him anyway. It's better that he sits down, heals up, and then returns to George Kittle for him in 3 weeks.
I think the bigger issue is that you probably drafted Kittle and probably didn't draft the backup tight end because you drafted George Kittle. You probably didn't think you needed one. I did the same thing. So now you got to go to your waiver wire and just see who's available. I was lucky to get Zach Ertz, who's had a solid last 2-3 weeks. But so if Zach Ertz is there, I think he's a guy you could target. I think if Mike Gesicki is still there, probably not. He's a guy you should target. You have options. You have options of people to target, but there's not many. So if you need help with that, we'll try to help you with that this week on our waiver wire segment for Tuesday's show. But there's just not going to be a lot out there. You kind of got to pick up a guy and hope that they score a touchdown and get you like 20 yards. If you hit 10 points, like you're solid with your tight end position. Let's keep it in we're going to keep it here in the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan stated, quote unquote, Jimmy Garoppolo is our starting quarterback if he was 100%.
Nope.
Did Kyle Shanahan and Matt Nagy swap bodies?
Let's be honest. Come on. That's not the case. That's not going to happen. I'll be shocked if it happened. I think this is just him blowing smoke. I think, if Lance struggles this week and if Jimmy G's out next week and he struggles again, maybe you go back to him. But I think Lance is going to just prove that he's the better quarterback. I think he's so clearly better. I think he's got much more chemistry with those receivers, and Jimmy G's been there for a couple of years and gone to a Super Bowl with them. I have not a doubt in my mind that Trey Lance is going to be the starter. Should he just be an average NFL quarterback these next 2 weeks?
Trey Lance is really going to have to shit the bed. He's going to have to throw multiple picks. He's going to have under 100 yards. He's going to have to totally flop over the next 2 weeks to lose his starting job because the 49ers have a solid football team. They have a run game. They have Debo and Ayuk. And as bad as Ayuk's been, he's not really the problem. The line isn't bad. The 49ers have a good football team. This isn't a Bears situation where you have the worst offensive line in the NFL on a dumbbell at head coach. And Kyle Shanahan's supposed to be this offensive wizard, so it's his job to, give Trey Lance the best opportunity to succeed. So, if Trey Lance does play horribly over the next 2 weeks, does he lose the job to Jimmy G? Maybe he does, but as long as, like you said, if he plays average enough football, Jimmy G's never starting another football game for the San Francisco 49ers.
I think that they trade him by the trade deadline.
It's possible.
I would be surprised if they didn't.
It'd be possible. Well, his contract's just massive, and I don't think they're going to be able to trade that contract. He's a free agent after this year. Maybe a 6th-round pick, 7th-round pick, but nobody's going to want to tack on that contract, and there's nobody that really can. Who would use him at this point? I mean, the Bears are going to start Fields or Dalton or Nick Foles. I mean, who would use him?
We'll see. I could see the Steelers trying to pick him up just so that he could replace Big Ben next year, and maybe you see him play again this year, but. Mm-hmm. I really don't know what they're going to do outside. They got to move Jimmy G, I think. Yeah. I think that they could still get some value for him.
All right. And we're going to talk about the injuries for the rest of the day. So we're going to end the show a little early. We're going to do 11:35, something like that, 11:40, because I actually got to get out of here. I have a busy day. And it's just me and Nick. So we don't have the daily fantasy segment. So if you have any questions, drop them throughout the show. But for now, we're going to save the 1:00 injuries for another 10 minutes or so. Let's talk about the 4:00 games. And 49ers again, Elijah Mitchell, his shoulder's good to go. He had full practice Friday, limited Wednesday and Thursday. He's good to go. He missed the last 2 weeks where it was the Trey Sermon show, but he desperately needed those touchdowns. So, Nick, Elijah Mitchell's coming in now. Is Trey Sermon startable?
It's so tough. I mean, I got really put in a hole because I have CMC and Mixon. Mixon, we'll talk. Well, I mean, we'll find out really the news at 11:30, but I mean, I don't feel comfortable starting Mixon, and CMC is obviously going to be out this week. It's really a toss-up for me at who I'm playing at running back. I dropped Hubbard the week before, and Sermon was my guy that I had as my backup. And it's like, well, should I start Sermon this week, or should I be picking someone off waivers? I decided to just trust Sermon, go with him, because I think he is the better running back. I think he's more talented. So I'm going off that alone, but I can't see him finishing as a top 2 running back as a running back 2, not even a low end RB2, unless if he hits the end zone multiple times, because I just think Mitchell is going to out touch him.
Yeah, I don't want to start either of these running backs. I've said it before, the San Francisco 49ers are the absolute worst team when it comes to fantasy football. You just can't trust any of them, their players, except for Deebo Samuel at this point, not even Kittle. You don't know what's going to happen with Kittle when he comes back from the injury. You could only trust Deebo Samuel. You cannot trust Ayuk. He's on the bench. You can't trust either running backs. They're on the bench. You definitely can't trust the quarterbacks. They're on the bench. The defense isn't what it used to be. They're on the bench. You can't even Robbie Gould. I started Robbie Gould last week. I look at my line. I'm watching the Seahawks game, and I say, hold on. Why is Robbie Gould not kicking? And apparently there was an issue in pregame. So you can't even trust the kicker for the 49ers. You are benching all your 49ers not named Deebo Samuel.
Oh, and the defense, because they just allow like 30 points to the Lions.
I mentioned the defense. Yeah, you can't even trust them. So all the 49ers are benchable except for Deebo Samuel. Not the 49ers. The Cowboys have some injuries. Ezekiel Elliott has a knee injury. He was limited on Thursday and Friday. Amari Cooper, hamstring injury, limited on Thursday and Friday. They're both playing. Nick, your owners are both. Are you worried about either of those two?
Nope, not a concern. I think both of them are extremely talented. The Cowboys look like a phenomenal team this year. They're going up against the Giants. Not really. I mean, the defense is good, but it's not that good. I don't see it as a true threat to either of them and either their ability to perform. I think that whole offense is better than that whole defense in every single area of it. Their wide receivers are better than their corners. Their running back is better than their linebacker. Their offensive line is better than their D-line. Their quarterback's better than their entire defense. So not a concern for me at all.
Yeah, me neither. They're both going to play. They're both probably going to have good games. Amari Cooper had a hamstring scare last week, but then he came back into the game and scored a touchdown and kind of saved his day. That game was weird last week. Both Cooper and CeeDee didn't get a lot of yards or points. It was kind of the Ezekiel Elliott show. Very weird.
Yeah, Cooper got saved by a touchdown.
Yeah.
At the end of the game,
he would have had 9 points, I believe, without the touchdown. And CeeDee only had like 3 or 4. So,
yeah, CeeDee finished with 3-3.
Yeah, and Zeke.
I think that's an off game. I'd go target him.
I think so too.
He has another bad game this week.
What did Zeke have? 15, 18 or something? I think he had 2 touchdowns.
Zeke had a good week.
Yeah, Zeke probably. Yeah, I think he had 2 touchdowns and 150 yards. So Zeke must have had.
Zeke's looked incredibly good.
Yeah, Zeke probably had close to 200 yards. So I'm not worried about Zeke. I'm not worried about Cooper. They'll be fine. Don't worry about them when it comes to injuries. One injury news that we did just get an update for is Courtland Sutton. He was supposed to be a game time decision. He tweaked his ankle in practice on Thursday, then was limited on Friday. But I did just get the update that Courtland Sutton is good to go. He looked good in the pregame. So Courtland Sutton, good to go. Teddy Bridgewater is also good to go. He had full practice on Friday, cleared concussion protocol. They're going up against the Steelers defense. Nick, Teddy B and Courtland Sutton, Teddy B, you're probably not starting, but Courtland Sutton, knowing that Teddy B's at quarterback, is he a guy that you're starting this week in a flex spot?
Let me just pull up. No, I don't think so. I think Pittsburgh's defense is way too tough. Look, their offense isn't good, and Big Ben's probably going to turn the ball over more than once. But the defense is still there. Those corners are good. There's not going to be a lot of time for Teddy B. They got 2 injuries at offensive guard. There's going to be a ton of pressure. I don't trust Javonte. I don't trust Melvin. The only player I trust this game is Noah Fant, who I said would bust at the beginning of the season. So for me to even say that I think he's going to have a good week is a big statement. So I really don't see a lot of potential with the other guys in that offense. I think Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler help spread the ball so much between that wide receiving core, where like all of them see a boost in their outlook when all 3 are on the field. But if you limit one, then they don't space the field as well. The safeties, they guard the wide receivers a different way. So with Hamler and Jeudy sideline, there's not going to be much potential for Sutton, even with him being the only reliable wide receiver out there other than Tim Patrick.
All right, I'm going to give my take in a second, but we do have a tweet that we got. PPR League, I need 2 of these 4. Antonio Brown, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Henry Ruggs, and Zach Moss. The Twitter user is at DV212121. What do you think, Nick? AB, Edwards-Helaire, Henry Ruggs, and Zach Moss.
I love Ruggs rest of season. Chicago's a very good matchup, so I might look to play him. It really depends on the rest of the team because you're looking at a couple guys with high upside and some guys with a good floor. Like Moss has had a good floor these past few weeks. So if you need the floor and you need someone that's just going to probably get you, your 8 to 12 points and you're comfortable with that, that's your Zach Moss, that's your Antonio Brown. But if you really need that upside, you're looking at Henry Ruggs. Clyde will give you that safe floor because he's going to get, 15, 20 touches. He's going to get some goal line work. But I think for me personally, I'm starting AB. And if you need the upside, I'm going Henry Ruggs. If you need the safe floor, I'm going Clyde. You won't have to make that decision until 4 o'clock, though. So I wouldn't be looking at that until you really know the rest of your team and the outlook of the game.
So you're saying Edwards-Helaire if you need the floor, Ruggs if you need the upside.
Yeah, I'm playing AB no matter what.
Okay. Yeah, I'm telling him AB and Clyde or Edwards-Helaire for me. So I'm going to respond to this tweet in 1 second.
Okay.
All right. And I'll give you this. So Devontae Parker was announced he was out with a hamstring. Got that news this morning going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So have a tough defense, but their secondary is probably a bottom 5 secondary in the league. So Nick, how does this affect Jalen Waddle and Gesicki really? Because nobody's starting Jacoby Brissett.
So the Buccaneers have actually allowed the most points to opposing wide receivers, and they just won a Super Bowl last year. So, I mean, it's more so because they're up in games and, the wide receivers are going to put in work. But with Jacoby Brissett, you're really not going to see too much production out of the wide receivers. Jalen Waddle's the only one that I think is playable. I think Fuller's out too. I don't even know who the next guy up would be. I think
Fuller's out, so they have nobody right now.
Yeah, so it's just Jalen Waddle. They traded someone to Chicago. Was it Jeremy Grant or was it?
I think it was Grant, if I remember correctly.
I think it was Grant. So look, they're even slim there. So you're really not looking at much production from the other wide receivers. Gesicki should be fine. He's going to see a ton of workload. Gaskin's going to be a big question mark. Gaskin's going to be someone to look out.
Gaskin's not really startable right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I watched a lot of people drop him this past weekend.
They haven't given me any. He might be on. I think he's going to be on our drop segment. Stash trash on Tuesday. Yeah, because at this point he's droppable. In some leagues at least. For me, I didn't answer the Broncos question, but Courtland Sutton to me is a flex play. The receiver position is so deep, so I need to see the team and see what other receivers you have. But if you want those Jaguars receivers, you're playing them over Sutton. But if you like Juju, I'm not playing Juju over Sutton. I'm playing Sutton. And as for the Dolphins, I think this is going to be a very heavy Mike Gesicki game, and I think Waddle's going to get his targets too. So if the Dolphins are going to score any points today, those are the two guys that will eat up the targets. Speaking of Chase Claypool was out last week with a hamstring injury. He's going to play this week after missing last week. He was limited Thursday and he was full on Friday. Zach Wilson just also missed a wide open Corey Davis for like 50 yards, and that's really frustrating. Thanks, Zach. You're just
my game's delayed.
Oh, I'm sorry. You'll see it in a second.
It's all good. It's all good.
I don't know if it's that bad, but like it definitely. I mean, I glanced over and it just didn't look. It looked off.
We also missed Pat attempt after a touchdown.
Yeah.
So.
Nick, Chase Claypool, is he somebody you're playing against the Broncos defense today?
I have Claypool in multiple leagues. I love him on the entire season, but that Denver front seven is going to disrupt that horrendous offensive line. Najee's going to see 2-yard passes because there's going to be nothing else for Ben. He's not going to have a lot of time to get the ball out. Against that front seven, it's not going to be a good game. Deontay is going to see a ton of workload as usual. Juju will probably have a horrendous game if he doesn't find the end zone. Claypool, someone that needs time for Big Ben to get the ball out, and it's not going to happen. Najee's more of a rusher. Those tight ends aren't great at blocking. The offensive line's not good at blocking, and Denver gets to your quarterback. So Claypool, I have him benched in every league this week. If he has a big week, I'll be shocked because the matchup's just horrendous, but I'm benching him.
For me, the only Steelers players that are startable this week are Najee Harris and Deontay Johnson. Johnson's going to get 10, 11 targets. He'll probably catch 6, 8 of them and probably have 50 yards and a chance of a touchdown. So I think Deontay's a guy you just play every week just due to the pure volume that he gets. And Najee Harris, he's looked phenomenal the last 2-3 weeks. He's had 2 games with 30-plus points or 25-plus points, I should say. You drafted him as your running back 2 or running back 1, and he's playing like one right now. I know the Denver defense is tough, but he's a guy you just have to play him every single week. So Antonio Gibson, stress fracture in his shin. I saw earlier today that it was initially, I think it was a bone bruise or it's just a bruise, and now apparently it's a stress fracture. So maybe misdiagnosed, maybe got worse. Limited week to week. He's been one of the bigger busts of the fantasy football season. Are you starting him this week, Nick, against the Saints? I think they have the Saints this week.
I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to own him in any league, but I wanted to. I mean, I don't know how you could start him if he has a stress fracture on his leg. I mean, you're a running back. You're not going to be able to run with a stress fracture on your leg and you're missing practice all week. I would not be excited. I think McKissick could have a huge week because I think he's going to find a role as a 3-down back without Gibson if he misses. I don't think I don't know if the report came out if he's missing or not yet. You could update me on that.
Gibson or
yeah.
McKissick? Gibson.
Gibson,
No,
yeah.
I believe he's going to play as far as I can read. He's not
Yeah.
doubtful. He's questionable. I believe he's going to play, but I think he says he feels good. He's playing through it.
If he actually has a stress fracture, that's a terrible decision by the coaching staff to put him out there. I would not be excited. I'm not playing Gibson. I mean, there is way too much potential for him to get a severe injury with a fracture in his leg as a running back. But even with how limited that position is, you drafted him as your running back 1 or 2. You're just benching him this week. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't even performed up to his expectations. So he's not a fringe starter, but I mean, there might be other guys that you have. If you have another one, one of those mid-round running backs. If you drafted 3, you're playing a wide receiver at flex now. You're not flexing your running back. You got to bench Gibson, in my opinion.
All right, I'm gonna kick it to this because I wanted to save this, but it fits the topic. Dalvin Cook is still dealing with his ankle injury, and head coach Mike Zimmer said game time decision versus the Lions. But if Cook plays, there's no sure thing that he's going to get his usual workload. This is directly from Adam Schefter. Never mind. Just got the update that Dalvin Cook is inactive. Literally, as I'm speaking about him,
he's inactive today. Okay.
Yep. So I don't even need to say anything about that. So Alexander Mattison, bump him up. If you got him, you're playing Alexander Mattison this week for sure. He's going to get you 15, 20 fantasy points.
I'm actually checking one of my leagues right now to see if he's available.
Which is it? Our league?
8-man league.
Oh, it's not our league. I don't think he's available in any of my leagues. I'm pretty sure he's owned in just about all my leagues, which sucks because I would like to start him. But Nick, if you're a Dalvin Cook owner, if you don't have Madison, I mean, this is your first round pick that's now missed 2 games, and last week he kind of missed the game because he only got you 4 points. So between McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook, these first round picks aren't panning out at the moment. I'm trying to think of who's the best pick of the first round in most leagues. Because Kamara hasn't had a great. It's Derrick Henry. It's Derrick Henry by a mile. Yeah.
I mean, it's Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, and Zeke probably. Those are probably the top 3, I think.
Tyreek's had 2 phenomenal weeks. Tyreek's also had 2 phenomenal weeks. Cortland Sutton active. I'm just reading through the inactives, inactives. Yep. So, how about Joe Mixon? Another one. This situation is so weird. You want to talk about playing through an injury? Mixon was diagnosed with a high ankle sprain 4 days ago, and I think they signed a running back or 2, and he didn't practice all week. Then a report pops up from Adam Schefter last night that he's planning to play. What? You have a high ankle sprain. You didn't practice all week, and now you're playing?
I have Mixon benched.
Yeah, I would bench him too. I don't know how much workload he's going to get, and I don't know how he might come on for a couple snaps and have to go out. I love the Bengals this week. I love Burrow. I love all 3 receivers. You're starting all of them, maybe even CJ Uzomah in a deep league, but Mixon, you can't start him. You can't do it. Unless you're that desperate, you can't do it.
So in this league, I have Christian McCaffrey, who is not playing. I have Damian Harris as my RB3, and I have Joe Mixon. So I got to start 2. I mean, and the other guy I have on my bench is Trey Sermon, and then I have Samaje Perine just in case Mixon missed. If Mixon was out, I was playing Perine over Sermon. I don't know if I could trust Mixon over Trey Sermon this week. Not knowing how limited he's going to be, I think is really a toss-up. And I'm struggling right now to decide who I want to play with between the 2.
Yeah, I'm not trusting him. I'm just not trusting him at all. I just read it right now. Bengals, Joe Mixon is active.
Yeah.
I'm not touching him. All right. What about these Lions? TJ Hawkinson was limited on Thursday and Friday. I forget the injury. I think it's an ankle, but he should play. Jamal Williams, he was limited all week with a hip injury. He should play. And DeAndre Swift has been dealing with a groin for 3 years now. He was limited Friday, and he should play. Are you worried about these Lions at all, or are you locking them all into your lineups?
Nah, lock them in. I'm not concerned about those guys.
Jamal Williams is the only one to me that you probably may not lock in, just depending on your running back situation. I love him. He gets about half of the work that Swift gets. He gets more red zone touches than Swift does. He can catch the ball. So I actually love Jamal Williams in most weeks, especially if now you're missing Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, McCaffrey. If any of those guys are out, you have a really solid running back in Jamal Williams. So good on you for drafting him in round 10. But he's probably not a guy you're playing, every single week. But I'm not worried about Swift. He's going to get the volume. Hawkinson, you drafted high, and I think he's put up back-to-back stinkers. So he's not Travis Kelce. He's not in that. He's not Darren Waller. He's not in that. In that field yet. But he's still in the tier 2 with Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, who had a touchdown today. McCaffrey is out against the Eagles as expected, but I do think McCaffrey does play next week. Chuba Hubbard, is he somebody you're playing if you're missing McCaffrey or Dalvin Cook?
Oh, absolutely. If you own Hubbard in place of him, he's playing. We were concerned with Zeke having a bad matchup against Philly, and Zeke went off. Granted, Zeke's a much better running back than Hubbard, but it's not one of those games where it's a fringe running back that you benched against because it's a tougher matchup. It proved to be a fair enough matchup where the workload can outwork the team that you're playing. There's some matchups where it won't work, like against the Rams. You're not going to play Allen Robinson on Jalen Ramsey because even if he gets 10 targets, he's not going to be catching a lot of them because Ramsey's a blanket. It's a little different when you're versing what appears to be an average to below average rush defense when you thought it was top 5 in the league, top 10 going into the year.
Last injury note I have here is A.J. Brown. He missed last week's game against the Jets and probably caused my Survivor pool a win. Thanks. He out with a hamstring injury.
That's your fault. Never doubt the Jets.
Yeah, I would have doubted them this week against the Falcons because the Falcons are rising up against them.
Hey, the Falcons can't maintain a lead. We're coming back.
He was a full participant on Thursday and Friday. A.J. Brown, you're locking him into your lineup, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I traded for him in a league because of the doubt around his injuries, and I'm without a doubt starting him every week he's active.
Yeah.
Is Julio in?
Julio's out. And A.J. Brown has a great matchup against the Jaguars. So I think this could be the A.J. Brown breakout game. It's going to happen one of these weeks. DK's had a couple, but I think this will be A.J. Brown's breakout week. So that's all the injury news we got. I mean, the active and inactives have come out. That's kind of all we got. So I think we're gonna end it here. We're gonna end it a little bit early, but Cody's out, so we didn't do our daily fantasy segment, and I actually do have an event that I have to attend to. So we're gonna end it here. There's a football game on, so I know most of you are watching the football game, but that's okay. And Nick can go watch his Jets try to mount a comeback here. So thank you to everybody that did tune in today.
Mounting a comeback.
Our live show is every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Usually goes about an hour. We talk daily fantasy, answer your questions, etc. And then our other shows are on Tuesdays and Fridays, audio version, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. And then the video and audio version is on our YouTube channel.
Jets ball, let's go.
You can find us on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, PrimeTimeFFPod, Facebook, and YouTube, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. Nick, anything you would like to say before Week 5 starts?
See you Tuesday when the Jets have the same record as the Seattle Seahawks, baby. Let's go.
It's going to happen at some point. Hopefully Russell Wilson's okay. Prayer circle for him. Good luck, guys. Good luck this week for Week 5. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.